Hey guys, this is going to be a non-comic book video. Some people have some really cool record collections out there. I don't really have such a thing, but I have just set out my records and my turntable, which I think I need a new turntable. We haven't used it in 5 years. My wife pointed out to me that it sounded like it was playing the records a little slow. What happened was, when my daughter turned 1 and was able to walk around the house, or maybe when she started crawling, anyway, we took my record collection and my turntable out of the living room, and I never set it up anywhere. And just recently realized, hey, my daughter's old enough to behave herself around fragile things, at least a little bit. So I should pull out my records again. I haven't played records in 5 or 6 years, probably 5 years. So I have just a small number of records, I guess. I used to have a lot more. I am old enough so that I lived at a time, grew up at a time when records were your main way to listen to music. And I don't hear any music coming out of my... Oh no, I do hear it now. Okay, so anyway, I thought I'd just, for those people who are slightly interested, I'd show you what I'd give you a rough sense of what I have in terms of records. I of course got a lot of records as a kid, a teenager, college, beyond, and then at some point switched over to cassette tapes, then to CDs. And then there was a period where records were very cheap, and I started buying some, and I got this turntable. And I really enjoyed and decided I preferred records above all. Never really occurred to me to think of them as something to collect. But seeing like Comic Book Crack's record collection, I kind of get this urge to go out and collect a bunch of records, and maybe someday I will. But they're more expensive now. There was a kind of a cool little window sometime in the 90s where no one wanted them at all, and they were really cheap. So I'm not a well-organized person, so these aren't in alphabetical order. They're kind of roughly by genre, so when I'm in like a heavy metal mood, hard rock mood, I know where to go. If I'm in the mood for blues, I know where to go. So over here, in the part that is covered by a door, is mostly, I believe, my older hard rock and heavy metal. So let's see what I can dig up. Vanilla Fudge. Okay, that goes back before my time, actually, and so does this Mountain Avalanche. So these are sort of old albums that I bought probably in the 90s just for fun, things that I wouldn't have had as a kid because they were before my time. Well, this was sort of overlapped with my time. Let's see. And we've got, okay, so Rush was a big thing for me in high school, particularly this album, 2112. I saw Rush on their Hemispheres tour with some high school friends who I no longer remember. All right, I'm sorry, I'm no longer in touch with. Foghat is very important to me because they were the very first rock and roll concert I ever saw. My mind was blown, I have to tell you, because they were so friggin' loud. I just couldn't believe it, because I had no prior rock and roll knowledge other than, on the radio and records. I didn't know music could get that loud. I didn't know it was possible. And it was very, very exciting to me. So for that, I loved Foghat. I like them a lot now, actually, because they're a blues rock band, and I'm really much more knowledgeable about the blues now than I was then. Oh, there's another one of those ancient ones from before my time. Mountain, Iron Butterfly, Foghat. So let's see what we've got. Like every kid, when I was in high school, I liked Boston. I had a girlfriend in college who was really into Sweet, and she gave me all her albums. She was really into Sweet and Sparks. She gave me all her albums when she joined a meditation cult and left college. That's a whole nother story. The Kinks, this live album came out around the time I saw them the first time, and it was one of the best concerts I ever went to at that point in my life. More Foghat. Let's see what we got. I don't want to go over every album. Just wanted to give you guys a general idea. Cheap Trick, fabulous group that I discovered in high school, and then they became kind of a big thing shortly after that. Van Halen, who seemed like a joke to me now, but at the time seemed like the most incredible thing since sliced bread. Oh, bad Aerosmith album. Aerosmith was a really big band for me, you know, when I was 15 or 16. I never understood why the girl I liked wouldn't go to an Aerosmith concert with me. I just thought it was the coolest music ever. But she wanted to go to a James Taylor concert, so that relationship never happened. So let's see, what else have we got here? Much more Aerosmith, you know, Joe Perry going solo. Nazareth, also a group that for some reason I obsessed over at some point, particularly this album, Expect No Mercy. I don't even know what category it fits in. I saw Black Sabbath in high school, but I didn't really realize till college and later what an incredible band they were and how important they were. It really took my discovery of punk rock to make me appreciate Black Sabbath. So we've got a lot more Nazareth here. Let's see, Nazareth. Black Sabbath, floppy record. See how well I take care of my records. Oh, that's a cool cover. Wonder whatever happened to that artist. It's one reason one would want to go back and collect records is definitely the covers. It's kind of a lost art form. Let's see. I think I bought this Styx actually for my wife, so I must have bought it in the past 10 years. I think. Judas Priest. Now I didn't really get into Judas Priest at the time, so I bought this album much later. Some people don't expect me to like heavy metal and hard rock. Seems almost like my outside appearance and how I feel on the inside perhaps don't really match. So, got a couple of Molly Hatchets, AC/DC, which I remember buying this album in a Kmart. I just bought it for the cover. I had no idea who AC/DC was at that point. I don't think anyone in America did yet. And it probably was like a bargain album for $3.99 or something like that. Ted Nugent was huge for me. This is not my original copy, but this live album, for some brief period when I was 16, I worshipped Ted Nugent. Let's see. So much later, I guess in the 80s, I think I read about Metallica in like a magazine, and then I went out and got a bunch of their albums, really liked it. Went to a Metallica concert, the tour for this album, and Justice for All. I was probably the oldest person at that concert, and I was 26 at the time. Or at least it seemed like I was the oldest person at that concert. So it was like, you know, you think you're really cool in your 20s, and then you realize, no, there's a whole world that has passed you by. But then I started picking up on the new good heavy metal in the 80s. Slayer. This was actually the second Slayer album I bought. The first one was this one, and because it's my first one, I really like it a lot. I think I had no idea who Slayer was when I picked it up, but I really liked the title. And I knew, for some reason, I knew the name Rick Rubin, so I was really curious about that. Because Rick Rubin was the producer on it. And I still really love Slayer. I think Slayer are, I mean, it may seem silly to say it, but I think Slayer are really great artists. You know, like Philip Glass that I'm listening to right now. Artists of uncompromising integrity. Or so it seems to me. Of course, I don't know anything about them. They could be just like Brian Wood. Kinks, more Kinks. Bebop Deluxe. I only had this album, but I remember thinking they were really cool for some short period of time in college. So over the years, every time I would move, I would sell a whole bunch of albums because they're very heavy to carry. So it's kind of like looking at thin slices of my past, little things that are left over. David Bowie, The Who, Steppenwolf, Deep Purple. Deep Purple was actually the very first rock and roll band's album I owned. It was Smoke on the Water. I don't know where that is, but Stormbringer came shortly after I bought Smoke on the Water. So all of those are kind of my, I guess what you would call heavy metal and hard rock albums. And then here is going to be a whole lot of punk and new wave. I discovered the Ramones in 77, 78 and kind of gave up on heavy metal and really liked new wave, but really liked punk, liked X when they came out. They were one of my favorite bands for a while. Saw them play in New York City, 1982, I guess, 83. Classic Velvet Underground. What is that? Oh, that is Steppenwolf in the wrong place. So yeah, The Clash. I was huge on The Clash in college, along with the Ramones. Although the Ramones always were like my special band, and I saw them play about 7 times. You know, living on the East Coast at that period, it was very easy to see the Ramones. Although they had a pretty small audience, like there would usually be about like 500 people at a concert, or maybe even less. But then I remember after the song "Whip It" by Devo became big, all of a sudden everyone wanted to see the Ramones. Like, everyone heard the Ramones were the fathers of all this kind of music, and they went. And so then I saw some Ramones concerts with like 2,000 people, or 1,000 or 2,000 people, and half the audience would just be totally puzzled, totally confused. So yeah, I love this Black Market Clash, super Black Market Clash set of what do you call these smaller albums? I forget what you call them, 10 inches, or I don't know what they are. Iggy Pop, more Ramones. I felt obligated to buy every Ramones album, but I have to say, after a while, there were just a few good songs per album instead of each album being brilliant. Ian Hunter, I saw him in the 70s, late 70s, and he was quite brilliant. I don't know why I've classified him with the new wave, but what the hey. Husker Du, I love them. Saw them twice, I think, in concert. Then I saw Sugar two or three times, and then I saw, Bob Mould from Husker Du formed Sugar, and then I seen Bob Mould about 5 times, so I was pretty obsessed by Bob Mould, until quite recently. Best live album ever, or sometimes it seems that way. The Tubes, The Jam, they were pretty cool. Here's Blotto, who are from upstate New York. I lived in upstate New York for quite a while, and I had a friend who was the brother of the drummer of Blotto. Probably no one's ever heard of them. They had a couple of very minor hits, at least locally. One was called Metalhead. And another one was called I Want to Be a Lifeguard. Elvis Costello, Lou Reed. So you can see this is in no real order, except these all kind of are loosely related genre-wise. Talking Heads. The Tourists is kind of interesting. I think I can't remember why I bought this album. I think maybe my freshman year of college, because maybe it's something about the cover I liked. But it turned out that the two lead members of this band are Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart. So this was their band before they formed the Eurythmics, which I didn't realize until many years later. The Police. I saw the Police really early on. Took a girl on a date to the Police, and we smoked some pot before the concert, and I coughed throughout the whole concert. Looking back, I realized that's because of my asthma, but I didn't know then. I just thought I was a wimp when it came to the Mary Jane. Pete Shelley from the Buzzcocks. There's the Sparks from my girlfriend who joined the cult and gave me all her albums. I've tried looking her up on the internet to see whatever happened to her, but couldn't find anything, and probably she has a different last name than she did then. Hopefully things turned out well for her. Let's see. So I guess I haven't thought this out very clearly, though that's not good. As I pull everything out, Ramones, The Clash, Nova Mob, from the drummer of Husker Du formed Nova Mob, Jam. Yeah, so you get the idea here. Lots and lots of the new wave and punk. Power in the Darkness, the Tom Robbins band, which for some reason, they were very standard hard rock, except they were singing about politics and gay liberation. But somehow I found that, but they got linked with the punk rock movement anyway. Somehow I found them very compelling musically, even though they're pretty basic. Plasmatics. Yeah, what can you say about them? One of the greatest albums ever made. We got Joe Strummer, The Clash. I think I have every Clash album, even the ones that are kind of fake Clash albums. Husker Du again. I've got... Yeah, so you can see at points in my life I was as obsessive about music as about comics, I think. Whoops, this one's falling apart. This Clark Kent was actually a solo album by the drummer of the Police, Stuart Copeland, I think his name is. Hitting Birth, they are a local Portland band, or were a local Portland band in the heyday of the 90s. Sonic Youth, I never liked Sonic Youth as much as I felt I was supposed to, but I have enjoyed them and seen them in concert and all. This is all a bad idea. Not a bad idea to share, a bad idea to just pull out my records this way. So another huge component of my taste in music, which probably came about in my mid-20s and has stuck with me ever since, is the blues. I just have a little bit of blues on record. Oops, and now we're getting into my African music. So, okay, there's the end of the new wave stuff. They were also a local upstate and New York City band, the Drongos, although they were originally from New Zealand, I believe. They were really good. I saw them playing in bars when I was in college constantly, and I loved them and owned both of their albums at some point. Butthole Surfers. So yeah, before I go into the blues, the next section is very thin because most of my punk, Dead Boys, most of my world music is on cassette. I made the very bad move to buying all my music on cassettes at some point. I think after or while during doing a Let's Explore America in my old car. And I just switched over to cassettes and didn't have any kind of stereo, just a boombox and a car radio. But I love African music and other world music, but particularly African music. And since I've been living here in Portland, I have gone to tons and tons of African concerts, basically up until my daughter was born. And it's just really rich music to me. I was actually born in Africa. I was born in Enugu, Nigeria, because my father was studying the economy there. He was an economist. And so the first African music I ever bought was the most famous Nigerian musician, King Sunny Ade, and I really loved that, and that kind of set me off into African music. This is actually Indian music. Indian music is really fascinating stuff. So yeah, African music has been an obsession, and then blues, which is African American music, a foundational music to everything that we know in our modern culture, created by African Americans. Oh, there's another actual African from Nigeria, Chief Ebenezer Obey. So yeah, I have a huge amount of blues albums on cassette and CD also. I love all the greats of blues music: Howlin' Wolf, John Lee Hooker. John Lee Hooker's a special favorite, maybe because I got to see him a few times before he died. I even like blues by white people. Omar and the Howlers, very cool. I don't know what to say. So, okay, now I have a little section with kind of folky music. I must have had a lot of folky music at some point, because I had a lot of friends in college who were into folk music, and so I ended up getting into that for a while. Oh, there's more blues. George Thorogood might have been the first blues artist that I was aware of, and that did lead me backwards to John Lee Hooker, and especially to Hound Dog Taylor. I don't know where my Hound Dog Taylor album is. John Lee Hooker, more of him. Most of my John Lee Hooker would be on CD, though. There's Taj Mahal. There's Hound Dog Taylor. Love that guy. And I don't think I have any of him on vinyl, but I love R.L. Burnside. And you can kind of see with my love of punk and primitive music that how R.L. Burnside or Hound Dog Taylor really fit into that. Let's see. There's some more of the folky stuff. The famous lesbian folk artist, one of the first people to have a huge success on her own independent label, I believe. Chris Williamson, Johnny Cash. Oh, Aaron Copland. Now we're into just sort of an odd mix of things. Mae Way Out West. I think of Mae West doing covers of 60s rock and roll songs. Day Tripper, You Gotta Go, Boom Boom, Shakin' All Over. Haven't played that in a long time. The Dubliners. So this is just getting really all over the place. Bob Dylan. Love early Bob Dylan. Beau Soleil. Joan Armatrading. I love Joan Armatrading. Seen her a couple of times in concert. She is fantastic. Prince. I saw him in concert. But I was really into Prince around the time of 1999. I shouldn't say really into Prince, I liked him. Hot Tuna, I guess they should go in the blues section. Now it looks like I got kind of geezer rock and roll, maybe. The Rolling Stones. Exile on Main Street's a really great album. The only rap album, I think, that I own on vinyl. I saw Grandmaster Flash in 1983. Or maybe it was the Furious Five without Grandmaster Flash at that point. But, yeah. I don't know if I'm so interested in rap anymore. But I enjoyed it for a while. Oh, this goes way back. I thought I was really deep when I was listening to Genesis Wind and Wuthering when I was 14. How to play guitar. Pink Panther, we got movie things, Santana. This is all over the place. Evita, my uncle is incredibly into Broadway musicals, and for some reason he convinced me to buy Evita. I haven't really gotten much into Broadway musicals. Weather Report, all the cool kids in 1975 had a Weather Report album. Nana Vasconcelos, he's kind of jazz and world music, really cool. Percussionist. Wiki Sears was a Irish music band from upstate New York. This is a Philip Glass album. Philip Glass. Miles Davis doing a soundtrack. Soundtrack to Godspell. Godspell, you know, actually before I saw Foghat, I saw Godspell. So that was really my first rock and roll. That was not nearly as loud. Since it was about Jesus, my dad let me go on my 12th birthday. So I figured since I like Godspell, I might as well get the Hair album. The Black Album by the one and only Spinal Tap. And you thought Batman did it first. Al Stewart, Year of the Cat. More Santana. And more Philip Glass. So that rounds up what is left of my records. It gives you a few slices of my musical interests for those who are interested. By no means, you know, a small portion of all of my music, since I probably have about 1,000 cassettes stuffed away in my basement and probably 2,000, 3,000 CDs, I would guess. I don't really know the numbers. Anyway, for those of you who actually watched 27 minutes of me showing beat up old records, thanks very much for joining me. Bye-bye.